Well, Greenland, for the most part, is just a giant frozen piece of ice right now that is in the Arctic that is under threat. It is under threat from China. China is eyeing a sort of trade deal with Greenland, which would make the stakes even higher than they currently are. They'd be much, much higher than they currently are if China were to strike a deal with Greenland. And the US must actively defend Greenland from China's growing influence around the globe. We must protect not only our national interests, but secure our national or our critical resources, grow our Arctic presence, and look out for international security. International security. We must defend Greenland from China, whether it's through securing the island. I have no problem with that. We must secure the island in one form or another. But in order to understand why we need to secure it, you must understand why Greenland is important. Greenland is so important to international security because it is located between North America and Europe, which positions itself in a very strategic location. They have real estate in the Arctic Circle. They can monitor trade and shipping routes, which go through the Arctic, and they can monitor submarine activity beneath the surface. And remember, during World War II, Denmark was occupied by Nazi German forces. During this time, the U.S. took steps to secure the island of Greenland because the leaders at the time saw this as a strategic move. They saw the strategic importance of Greenland at the end of the day. They saw it in the island. They saw, especially when it came to detecting ICBM missiles and threats that came through the Arctic. And at the time, the U.S. did try and purchase Greenland from Denmark for about $100 million. They were going to do it in gold bullion in like 1946, but that offer was ultimately declined. And this is what I think. We should have just taken it. We should have just taken it all those years ago. We defended the island to make sure Nazis didn't have control there. We should have just kept it. We had a military base there. We should have never let them have it back. Because now, with the melting ice in the Arctic, more northern sea routes are opening up through the Northwest Passage, which reduce shipping times between Asia and Europe. And Greenland ports are prime real estate to make sure these are monitored, not only the shipping routes, but anything underneath the surface as far as submarines go. And China wants in on it. They want to control the island. They want to have real estate in the Arctic Circle. Now, Denmark has stopped prior initiatives from China really they're trying to fish. They're fishing. And then they try and really sink that hook. They sink it, and Denmark is not letting that happen. You got to set the hook. And Denmark's not letting China set the hook. A couple years ago, they tried to build a few airports in Greenland, invest money in the infrastructure and in the island there. But ultimately, Denmark stepped in and said, Probably because the U.S. was pushing them. We're not going to lie. It's probably because the U.S. was like, no, that's not happening. It's simply just not going to happen. Because then they would have soft power. China would have soft power. Because China has been making very aggressive plays for Greenland. The reality is I think we need Greenland for international security, but it would not be as big of a topic to discuss unless China was seriously trying to influence the region. If China was not, or a adversary was not trying to influence this region, this would not be a top priority. It really wouldn't be. I think it's very important. Would it be what it is right now? No, I don't think so. But as recently as March, Greenland's foreign minister showed interest in a free trade agreement with China. And like we said, Greenland is still under the control of Denmark, but they do have the autonomy over their own trade deals, their own economic policy. So they do have the ability to make deals with China unless Denmark really tried to exert their dominance over the island when it came to this. But as of right now, China is the top market for Greenland seafood exports, which account for roughly 80 to 90% of the exports from the island. 80 to 90% of the exports from the island right now. And with Greenland recently opening a trade office in Beijing, plus the history that China has of really trying to not only control the island, but push their influence all around the globe through the Belt and Road Initiative. This is Belt and Road right here. Belt and Road 101. Soft power influence. This is what China is trying to do. They are trying to make friends. There's a reason. Why does China get all the cobalt from the Congo? You wonder why. Does it have anything to do with the soft power that they've exerted there? The money they put in there, and then you're basically at the behest of China at that point. You're in debt to China. Because remember, back in 2018, a state-owned enterprise from China tried to build an airport in Greenland, but was ultimately blocked by Denmark because of the pressure from the United States. Plus, China has tried to invest tons of money into rare earth mineral mines in Greenland. Now, ultimately, it has been slowed down mostly by regulations in Greenland, but there are state-owned enterprises. These are controlled by the government. that are trying to invest money into a major mine, which they believe that if they were able to get control of that, it would be somewhere around 10% of the global supply would come out of this one mine in Greenland of some rare earth minerals. But China already has a huge grip on the rare earth elements and minerals market. They want to secure the entire supply chain so everyone in the world has to do business with them. And a trade deal between Greenland and Beijing would open up Greenland for investment in ports, mines, tons of infrastructure so China could get their hands on the island. Not only the island, but the resources in the island. Something that is right in line with the Belt and Road Initiative playbook that China has been using all over the world. Because remember, this is not about trade for China. China does not need the seafood from Greenland. This is about control. The CCP will use the money they have to buy loyalty from Greenland. And the propaganda that China puts there. And what's even worse is the propaganda that the EU puts into Greenland. The liberals and just Europeans in general have major Trump derangement syndrome. Like Trump says, it's a virus of the mind and eventually the body goes. It's really sad. But they are so Trump deranged that they would rather have China control Greenland than the United States. Look, I'm not asking China to push their soft power in Greenland. I'm not, if they wouldn't, we wouldn't have to defend this. Because Greenland has tons of resources. And the economic stakes could not be higher in Greenland. Greenland's subsoil holds some of the world's largest deposits of rare earth elements like uranium, graphite, materials that are becoming more and more critical for advanced technologies. Because remember, we are an advanced society at this point. We require these advanced elements in order to have computers, to have phones, to have Wi-Fi, to cellular towers, TVs, electric vehicles in general. On top of that, fighter jets. You want to talk about military readiness. These minerals are 100% needed for fighter jets, electric vehicles, microchips, and really any advanced technological system. In the one mine in Greenland, like we said, there's one mine. It's like Kavanja Field or something like that. But it could supply over 10% of the global demand. And there is much, much more than that in the island. That's one mine could control 10% of the supply. One mine. But let's just listen to what Trump has to say. Listen to what Trump's got to say about this.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it. We will keep you safe. We will make you rich, and together we will take Greenland to heights like you have never.
And this is what we need to be doing. We need to be courting Greenland. We already have reports out that show that Trump and the intelligence community is really focused on Greenland right now. Tons of focus on Greenland. Really trying to find weak points. Where can they find people inside of the Greenland government it's like you almost have to start bribing these people. You need to set up a serious campaign to take over the island. It's like the EU has done a great job marketing how Trump's a dictator and people in Greenland hate him. But we need to take this over for national security purposes. And like Trump said, one way or another, we must secure this. China is not going to back off. I can guarantee you that right now. They are not going to back off. No matter what deals reach, no matter what, China is not going to back off. Just like no matter what deals met with Russia and Ukraine, Russia probably will not stop. It's really unfortunate. It's very sad and it should stop. But I'm not the one who controls that. And right now, China controls over 80% of the rare earth mineral processing and has a history of using these supply chains as leverage. They did this with Japan. And a deal with China would lock these resources up, leaving the US and the world dependent on China for rare earth minerals and rare earth mineral processing. And America must defend the island from China if necessary, secure the island through military force. Because despite being 3,000 miles away from the Arctic Circle, China calls itself a, quote, near Arctic state and has invested heavily in polar research, ice-breaking ships, and infrastructure. You could almost call it the Polar Silk Road. It's Beijing's strategy, which includes Arctic ports, railways, energy projects to secure influence over trade and resources in the Arctic Circle. And Greenland's tilt toward China could strain Denmark's commitment to NATO. as Denmark balances economic pressures and security obligations. And remember, Chinese investment in Greenland could lead to what you would say a debt trap diplomacy. Like we said, they come in, build all this infrastructure, slap you with all the debt, and then you're in debt to China. You do what they tell you to do, which would give Beijing leverage over a NATO member's territory, whether it's part of the US or what. That is NATO member territory right now. Denmark is a part of NATO. We cannot let China, we can't. We cannot let China have influence over that. It's just not going to happen. Because remember, during the Cold War, the U.S. fortified Greenland to counter the Soviet Union. And today, China's economic warfare poses very similar threats, but with different tactics. It's more subtle. But there is definitely a threat there. And remember, look, the last 4 years, Biden was so weak. His foreign policy was so weak, he emboldened China to creep into our backyards, into Panama. He tried to go into Greenland. And if we lose Greenland, we lose NATO's edge. America's credibility as a superpower will be flushed down the drain if China gets its hands on Greenland. And remember, jump back to 2019. Trump had a great vision. And there were some missed opportunities, but it was a great vision. Trump floated the idea of purchasing Greenland. And people kind of just laughed at it. They loved the meme of Trump Tower in Greenland. And he said there is strategic importance to this land for national and international security. But he was mocked by the media. And his proposal really highlighted Greenland's role in countering China and Russia. And Trump's team has prioritized upgrades and pushed Denmark to limit investment from the Chinese government. Now, under Biden, the U.S. engagement with Greenland has really stagnated. No major trade or defense initiatives to counter China's charm. Offensive. This is just offensive strategy that China has. Why doesn't Greenland have a trade office in America? Why? Why don't we have a trade office there? And really, Trump saw the threat. He saw the threat and he's acting like a leader. This is what a leader does. There is a serious threat on our hands here. While Biden was asleep at the wheel. Letting China waltz into our backyard, whether it was Panama, whether it was Greenland, whether it's Canada. And who knows with Mark Carney, you just really don't know. That guy would have no problem really putting more and more and more into China. He'd like to shift the supply chains away from the U.S. and more towards China. And at this point, securing Greenland's rare earth minerals would revive American mining and manufacturing. It would create thousands of jobs. Because what's the contrast? What is on the contrary? Relying on Chinese-controlled supply chains. It will kill U.S. industries. It will force us, and it'll enrich Beijing. And rare earths, like we said, are critical for F-35 fighter jets, missile guidance systems, drones. Losing access to this undermines our ability to deter threats from China, Russia, or Iran. If we are not the leader here, we will be the follower. We cannot let China take the lead. Because protecting Greenland aligns with America First priorities. Because at the end of the day, they fall within the shield, within the sphere of American influence and American military. If Russia or China decided to strike Greenland, I guarantee you the U.S. would respond. I guarantee it. Not only because they're a NATO member, because it's in our freaking backyard. It's in our backyard right now. We have to have strong defense, economic independence, and standing up to these communists. And for that same reason, I hope the Democrats nominate AOC in 2028. She's a communist. So J.D. Vance can smoke her in the general election. I mean, just devour her. It'd be horrible. Talk about being done with more communists. AOC, what a joke. She is just a joke. And the fact that she rose $10 million in Q1 is just a complete joke. Shows there's a lot of people who don't have a brain in this country. And remember, this fight isn't just about Greenland. It is about American workers, our troops, our way of life, our Bill of Rights, our Constitution. We cannot let China dictate our future while Democrats prioritize woke policies over national security. They are prioritizing being people pleasers, being nice, what they would consider being nice, over American national security. And so the U.S. must act now. We must offer Greenland a robust trade package, including access to U.S. markets for seafood, investment, and sustainable mining. Because the U.S.-Greenland compact a free trade or association similar to agreements with Pacific nations ensure economic ties without the sovereign disputes, which actually I'd be okay with them being part of the U.S. We need to establish a U.S. trade and office in Nunuk to revive. We need to revive this. And then also rival China's Beijing outpost and strengthen ties with Greenland's 57,000 residents. We also need to expand our military base with new radars, new cyber capabilities, partner with Denmark to patrol Arctic waters against Chinese vessels, work with Canada and Norway to create an Arctic economic security bloc. We need to box China out of this. China and the Polar Silk Road ambitions. We must be the leader here. I am not an isolationist. I'm an America first. Peace through strength. No apologies. We must outbid, outbuild, and outsmart China immediately. We must take Greenland before it is too late. Because once it's too late, what are we going to do? Then we're in direct conflict with China. We need to secure this, get this over with before China has serious soft power influence there. We just have to. But so that is exactly why we must defend and secure Greenland immediately. Secure Greenland immediately. National security, international security. China does not need to be in the Arctic Circle. They do not need to control all rare earth minerals, all rare earth mineral processing. It does not need to happen. It should not happen. We cannot afford to have another superpower. We have America, Canada. I won't even call Canada a superpower, but Russia. There is no room for China in the Arctic. There just isn't. China is an untrustworthy partner. They are. But so let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think that the U.S. should take control of Greenland? Do you think we should secure Greenland if absolutely necessary against China? Let me know down below. And as always, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.